Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon or morning, whichever it is for you all, wherever you are. Jumping on today to talk about waiting for miracles. I know I've been gone for a while. I was over in Kauai. It was a lot of fun, great people. Everybody should take a break at some point. As somebody who's not done that in the past, right? It's always good to de-stress and defrag, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, today I want to talk about waiting for miracles. And this is something that I've been really guilty of in the past, if I'm going to be honest. And that is, I get this idea in my head that something's going to happen, right? And then once this happens, everything's going to be okay. And I kind of ignore, or I used to, I would ignore all the problems that were present and all the root causes that were present, because as long as this one thing happened, it would be cool. And if you've ever been in that situation, what you learn is that that thing often doesn't happen. And there's a reason for it, right? At both the practical and the spiritual level of why it doesn't happen. But let's right now just take a look at what it looks like. So if you're in that situation, right, then very often people will not take action because they assume, hey, listen, this thing's going to happen and it's all going to be okay. Right. And so because they're not taking action, they're not setting up the dominoes that really are needed to make it work. Right. This is that practical level. Right. Now, the other thing that can happen is people will take just enough action to hold on to hope. Right. So they'll take just enough to set it up so that it's possible, but not probable for this miracle to happen, for this redemption, for whatever it is to happen. So somebody will be there and let's say there's this business opportunity and they'll do just enough to make the business opportunity possible, but they won't do all of the work that's needed to really get it off the ground. And then, if the stars align, then hey, it's going to work out. But that at the end of the day often doesn't work because they're only setting up the possibility, the 1%, the 0.5%, instead of it, doing the things because if you take consistent action every single day on something, eventually it will happen, right? It's like Jack Canfield. I think it was like 2 things a day or 3 things a day that he did. And then eventually Chicken Soup for the Soul became like a big thing, right? When he first started out, people were like, hey, this is never going to work. But he said, well, I'm just going to do 2 things a day or 3 things a day. And, maybe 1 or 2% of them worked, but they worked, right? And so at the first level, at that practical level, right, if you're not taking those actions, then you're going to run into that issue of not actually getting anything going. And the stars, by definition, don't align very often. So maybe that miracle that you're talking about, right, would eventually happen, right? But if, let's say that statistically it happens once every 100 years, you're not going to be around when it does. Or maybe it happens, 20 or 30 or 40 years later, you've wasted 20 or 30 or 40 years waiting on something else when you could have pushed it forward in a year or 2 years or even, a couple months. Right. So that first practical level, if you're not taking that action, right, that's why waiting for miracles doesn't really pay off. I saw a movie once. I think it was called Flight of the Phoenix. And if I recall the quote, it said, all a man really needs, or a woman, all a man really needs in life is love. But if you can't give him that, give him something to hope for. Right. And people will hold on to that hope, just that fraction of a chance. And what that does is then that defangs them from really pursuing the certainty of success that they're truly capable of. And they just don't believe in that power, right? They're settling for the hope rather than the love of what they could be doing, of living their purpose, of living the life that they're meant to live, right? Because if you strive only for the best, if you strive to live a life that you love, right, then that is so much more than just the hope. The hope is a cheap imitation of what's available to you if you really, really, really take command of your power and go and do it. Now, the second reason why waiting for miracles isn't a good thing to do and generally doesn't work is from a spiritual standpoint, from a universal law standpoint, from just like a cosmic, like this is how reality works standpoint. If you're in a place of pain and, hey, maybe something will get better, you are not going to attract that. The universe is very rarely operates in giant jumps, rags to riches. Normally what happens is it's a much more gradual process. You can do rags to riches, but you have to climb all the way up the mountain. And what happens is in our culture, unfortunately, there are a lot of people who will go out there and they show you the end point and they show you the starting point and they leave out everything in the middle. Right? You can see this in before and after photos with fitness. You can see it with, the rags to riches, some entrepreneur gets on the on Facebook or whatever and goes, here I am in front of my jet with my Lamborghini. And, 10 years ago or 3 years ago, whatever, I was a bartender at the local pub and, I was barely able to make my rent. And now look at me, I'm a billionaire, right? So people think that it's just like this one little jump, right? And then everything happens. But what they don't show you is all the hard work that happened in between, right? And just from a universal law standpoint, how things work is the world very, very rarely operates in those kind of jumps. Can it happen? Yeah. You have a company and then, it goes public and you make several $1 million or whatever, right? But even in that case, right, there are all the years building that company for it to be possible, right? And in the few cases where it is truly that dramatic jump, like let's say you win the lottery, right? Somebody wins the lottery. I think what was the guy recently won like 800 something $1 million. If you go and you look at that actual study, because that's such a violation of natural law, they spike up and then they fall right back down. A lot of people who win the lottery are actually financially worse off than they were before they won because they blow it all and they accumulate all these debts and all this other kind of stuff, right? So in reality, the way that natural universal law works is it requires that gradual process. It's not a matter of waiting for miracles. It's not a matter of waiting for a huge jump. It's a matter of climbing up the mountain bit by bit, right? And the actions that you take from that first practical step and the universal law of how the universe aligns for you and when opportunities are truly going to present themselves, they align. They're the same thing, right? At the end of the day, the opportunities don't present themselves to people who haven't done the work. They present themselves to the people who have been taking consistent action, and then things change. So that miracle, that spike truly happens only when you go and you do all that middle stuff, when you climb the mountain, right? And if for some reason it doesn't, then you need to be watching your bag very closely, because if it is a lottery kind of thing, it's very easy to blow it, right? So that's why, the whole waiting for miracle strategy is something that people will do, not realizing that it doesn't work, not realizing that, they have to be taking the actions both practically and, from a natural law perspective, because they see all of these things out, where people pitch only the before and after, right? And they see that and they think that's how it's going to be. And so it's not your fault if you've been operating in that paradigm, because society, frankly, doesn't lead us down the right road there. But now that right, you have, an obligation to yourself to go and start taking that action, to get out of that trap. Because if you're sitting there holding on to hope, not doing something, then you're trapped until things change, right? So now that you know this, you have an obligation to commit to yourself to do what you love. You have an obligation to stand up for yourself. You have an obligation to do more than waiting for miracles. You have an obligation to start making your own miracles, because you guys are the miracles. Every human being on this planet has the capacity to add so much value, to live such a wonderful life. There's so much abundance if we step into our birthright and we step into how we're supposed to live and how we're meant to live, right? And I want every one of you to step up and do that, right? It's been a huge thing in my life. It's been a huge thing in the lives of my clients, in other people that I've seen, entrepreneurs that I know, non-entrepreneurs I know, friends, everything, former colleagues, all of it, right? And that's where you got to live, right? You've got to live with that commitment and that action on a daily basis, because it's not on, something else out here. It's on you. It starts here, right? Like Jack Canfield, 2 actions a day, a year later, your life will be completely different. So if you guys know what that is, if you don't know what that is, if you're trying to find that purpose, that true love of yours for your career, if you're trying to find, if you know what it is and you don't know how to make it happen, any of that kind of stuff. But if you're on this journey and you're done waiting, you're ready to take action, give me a call. This is where you can book it, www.oculusinstitute.com/scheduling. And I do look forward to speaking to you guys soon. I am, again, not here. This is not something where I'm going to be able to make the miracle happen if you're waiting, right? I'm not a magic man. I'm not a wizard. I'm not, an angel or anything supernatural, right? This is a matter of like, if you're willing to take the action, I can show you what action to take. I can make it a lot easier. We can get you clear on that, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it starts with commitment. It starts with you committing to yourself and to your purpose. And anybody who does that, I'm committed to you. And we together will be committed to making this happen. And that's how, we can work wonders. So wishing you guys the best. Hoping you guys enjoyed today. Good to be back. Had a great vacation. And I will see you guys in a couple days. Cheers.